Awesome. So why don't we give a quick introduction to everyone here. Let's just go maybe or I'll go first quickly since I'm talking, and then we can just go in alphabetical order. I'm Stephanie. I run the webinar program here, and I'm going to be helping moderate all the questions coming in. So that same chat panel that you use to let us know that you can hear us, that's where you can type in questions. And we're also going to use the raise hand feature as well. So I'll pull up a slide on that, but yeah, I think, who's next? Dale, is that you? I think.
Yes, okay, so my name is Dale Lutz. I'm one of the two co-founders of Safe Software. I've been at this with my friend Don. Don, you realize it's almost 27 years we're coming up on, so it's hard to believe we started this when we were 3 years old, isn't it? So
it really is, Dale, it really is. We were prodigies.
So anyway, excited to see what you all have for us to talk about today. I was thinking that while we're introducing ourselves, if you wanted to type in just a couple words about where you're from and what you're doing, all of you folks at home, that would be interesting for us to see as well. But with that, I'll hand it over to Dave. We're going alphabetically.
Hi, I'm Dave Campanas. I'm a member of the strategic support team here at SAFE, working with some of our larger customers on larger projects. And my focus is BIM, 3D, and coordinate systems.
Yeah, how many of you guys saw Dave yesterday in the webinar too? Oh no, Don,
okay,
sorry.
Hi there. My name's Don, and I'm the other co-founder who's been working with my good buddy Dale for, I can't believe it's 27 years, but wow, time flies. And when I was 3, I had the same amount of hair as I have now, so it's kind of like full circle. And yeah, so I just have fun working with great folks at SAFE. All of them are examples are on this call, but we have an amazing team. We love what we do, and yeah, and I'm excited to be here.
Nice, thanks, Don.
Hi, and I'm Mark Stoakes. I'm on the FME applications team with Dave, helping customers with proof of concepts, mostly around the spatial side of our product.
Awesome. And we do have Mark Ireland and Dan online as well, helping to answer questions behind the scenes. We might not be able to get to all questions on the air, but we have Mark and Dan who are hopefully going to be able to get to your question behind the scenes if we're not able to get to it on the air. And if for whatever reason that doesn't happen, we will follow up with you afterwards. So don't worry if your question seems to go unnoticed, we will get to you. But so I know we had a prerequisite for this webinar as well. In the email, we said that we're hoping people are coming in with an understanding about spatial data and about FME. But if you are new to either one of those things, we are of course happy to have you. And we actually have a couple of great resources about spatial data that I will go ahead and chat out if you are new. And then if anyone does want to answer or ask a question on the air, or even just join a discussion on the air, like you are liking what we're talking about and you just want to join in and have something you want to say, do use that hand raising feature and I'll come on, I'll promote you as a panelist, and then you can get your webcam going, get your mic going, and we'll get you on the air.
And for those folks out there who don't know who Mark Ireland is, you can follow him on, he's our FME evangelist, also writes good blogs, and also greatly, involved in the community, and has lots of fun there. So you'll bump into Mark in many places once you're working with FME. And Dan I is, when you submit questions, he's a machine that just answers questions for our users at an amazing rate. And yeah, so we're well backed up with them on the call. Yeah.
We have some awesome people for sure. Okay, it looks like we do have some questions starting to come in. So let's see here. Which formats did the first FME desktop release support?
I'm glad you're asking that, Stephanie, because I saw that come in and I began on archive.org to find our first ever website. And if people want an interesting, actually, I could probably chat this out to everybody and they could browse around the past. the archive.org is going to wonder what happened there. But anyway, in 1996, you can see our very wonderful website and very nice background image that we had back then. And I'm clicking on the supported formats and systems. This is so exciting. It's coming up, I think. A little bit slow. And there it is. Okay. So look at that, Don. You had done the AutoCAD DWG already then.
Wow.
This is
that was one of the original.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
BMOEP, ArcInfo Generate. That's a format we don't talk about too much.
No, forgot about that one.
The mighty shapefile.
Yeah.
Esri SDE. That was one of our, I guess, Wayne Gretzky says you got to be good to be lucky and lucky to be good. We were lucky to get involved in SDE extremely early, and that got us into some high value clients. Don, you did a big project in Bell South, I think.
At Bell South, yeah. SDE was interesting because we supported SDE before Esri acquired that company. And so, like Dale says, that was an incredibly lucky thing that happened for us, because all of a sudden, all the SDE reading and writing capabilities that we had built were now part of the largest GIS vendor. And so really, and that's what led to the whole Bell South, the Bell South project with good folks like Larry Bowden and amazing team at Esri. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, Stephanie, if you pop back to the previous page, there is that supported formats. It's about 3 down from the one you clicked. There you go. Yeah, anyway, GIF image. We could rasterize stuff. We didn't realize it, but we could have been doing internet mapping, and we kind of used to have a demo of that back then. MicroStations. So you can see we had CAD covered off, map info, mid. We actually did. We already knew that FME could be used for non-spatial stuff because we had CSV, DBS, DBF, and CAT, column aligned text.
Yeah.
And of course, the format that started it all, SAIF.
That's right. Pronounce safe. There you go. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And we never did do, in the next section there, it talks about PAMAP. I wonder how many on the call, and in the coming soon, if you just scroll down a tiny bit, Stephanie, you can see what we're going to work on. We did do MGE, we did do E00, we did Tiger, we did OBC, we did TAB, we did DLG, digital line graph, but we never did PAM's map. So
that's right. That was thing from BC. So yeah.
Are those ones still around? Some of them?
Geographics is long gone. MGE is dead, but I think there's still data in it. I don't know. The Marker, Dave, do you ever see MGE data these days?
Not for a long time. I think they used the basic structure though for geographics when they came out with Bentley Map. But they just went and changed all the I think the column names to lowercase just to mess us up.
We love when they do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, hang on here. I'm gonna pull this.
Lots of fun. Thanks, Siggy, for that kickoff question.
Yeah, I love that you guys have the old website still. That's so fun to look at. Okay, so yeah, again, if anyone does, we do have someone raising their hand. So let me bring them on the air here. Brian, I'm going to make you a panelist and we'll bring you up. So while Brian is coming up, let's see what other questions we have. John, this one might be a good one for you. Oh, hang on here.
Sure.
Oh, no, my screen is being shared. So we hear a lot about you talking about enterprise integration and that FME is moving towards the enterprise. Do you see SAFE moving away from spatial data?
The short answer is no, but there's a great story there. Often I get excited, and Dale, we get excited about things, and really we should have been talking about expanding our reach into the enterprise, but we talked about moving to the enterprise, which caused some of our users to wonder, why are they abandoning their area of expertise? And so we've hired folks. Of course, we have Megan, who's done studies, and again, now our whole shtick is, hey, build from our strength, and because that's really the thing that differentiates us from other technology. And I remember the first time I went to a Tableau conference, we just played up the fact that we were, a tool that could move data. We didn't have anything spatial about it. And the whole question that people kept asking us the whole day was, how are you different than Alteryx? Or how are you different than this tool? Oh, I already have that tool. Why would I need you? And so then, the first day wasn't so successful, went back to the hotel, changed our message, and then came out and then, really highlighted the fact that we bring spatial data to the enterprise. And with spatial data growing in importance, that really resonated well. So then people were coming to us because that was our differentiator. Nobody does spatial data like FME. And so that's, so no, definitely not moving to the enterprise. I would say we're in the enterprise, we're just expanding our reach within the enterprise would be much more, and we're having great success because as spatial data becomes more important, we're the only ones who really have the breadth of the support and the depth, and so that's a real advantage to SAFE. So yeah.
Awesome, thanks, Don. Okay, this question from someone who's new to FME. They said they took part in the training courses, but where do we suggest they can go to learn more about building workflows, understanding different transformers, and so on? Oh, Mark, you're muted.
Mark's muted.
That's always a tough question, and it really depends on what the problem is they're trying to solve, I think. And that's where our community really shines. Somebody can go to the community. We've got tons of articles on different aspects of FME being used in different ways. And then just asking that question on the community, and somebody will step forward and give you a kick forward, I would say.
Knowledge.safe.com, is that the best URL?
That's our old one. It has been revamped, although it will still work. Okay. Safe.com/community.
Okay.
And so will
really hit on
FMEpedia at safe.com will still work as well.
FMEpedia.com.
That one.
And that's really the beauty and the challenge of FME is it does so many things. And so what transformers you need, first depends on the data. If you're working with raster, it's going to be one set. If you're working with line geometry, it's going to be another set. If you're working with LiDAR, then it's probably another set. And as Mark said, the community is the best place to go. There's also live chat on our website, and then you can tell us what you're trying to do, and then that's really where we can give you more directed help. And really do reach out to us. You really are talking to a real person there, and so that's the way to go. Yeah, but the community is by far amazing. You're going to meet people around the world, and there's just geniuses all over the world who are part of the FME community, and that's really one of the strengths of FME is its community.
Yeah, I know that.
And also those users are working in their specific domains, whether it's BIM or networking for utilities and so on. And so they not only know FME, but they know that domain very well.
I know the Transformer Gallery as well is a good place if you're curious about learning more about a certain transformer. Okay, so where do you see spatial data integration playing a role in the enterprise? And is IoT part of it?
I can't say good question. It is a good question, but anyway, that was a joke because I wrote this one, and because I've been asked this a few times about what's SAFE strategy with IoT and where do we see spatial data integration going. And so I thought I'd just throw one in there. So where's IoT? That's an easy one for sure. With 5G. And IoT, we're seeing a lot of interest. We have a number of large clients who have, sensors on moving stock, whether they be railways or trucks or cars and things like that, moving into FME. And in fact, if we look towards FME 2021 in March, you're going to see that actually there's a whole new streaming component that comes with FME server just to make it much easier. So you can do IoT and data streaming with FME today. In FME 2021, it's going to be easier. And if you even look at FME 2020.2, you're going to see some of the features for FME 2021 leaking out. Like there's Kafka, there's RabbitMQ, there's MQTT, and all these sort of connectors. The other thing I'd say is we're really starting to see, a move toward the cloud. More and more organizations are moving to the cloud. And I think the whole pandemic lockdown thing has actually accelerated that, because now, more and more organizations are distributed. And so it doesn't make sense having all your information in your building and then everybody sucking it out of the building. And then you got to worry about your infrastructure. SAFE is very lucky because we happen to be right on the internet highway. So we could basically get a connection as fast as we want, but that's not true for everybody. And yeah, and then so what about FME? Well, we've always prided ourselves in being platform agnostic, and so you can run an FME platform on Azure in the marketplace, the whole platform, desktop and server. You'll also find it on the Google Marketplace, same desktop and server, and of course we have FME Cloud running on AWS, and so that's kind of where we're going with that. Yeah.
Awesome. It looks like I couldn't get Brian to come online. So sorry, Brian, we can try again if you want to, but if anyone else does want to try raising their hands, feel free to do so. I'm not sure. Yeah, you might just need to check the settings even in your computer that you can share your webcam and mic, but sorry about that. Okay, so next question. So where do you see spatial data use changing over the past few years? Any themes or directions that you look to for the future?
Well, one thing is it's being used in more and more different places. So I'm thinking specifically of expanding or kind of presenting it in augmented reality. So that's sort of a frontier that's kind of opening up to be explored, and we're really excited about some of the stuff that's there. I think the intersection of cartographic skills on top of the AR technology and as providing ways of combining things and augmenting things so you can do that and present stuff in meaningful ways is pretty exciting. So that's one angle of it. Of course, big data, huge volumes of data that have a spatial component, and then what do you do about making sense of that, filtering it, or trying to analyze enormous amounts. And there we're flirting with this Uber H3 library, which was really around trying to find small hexagons where you can bin large amounts of measurements, basically. So those are just a couple that come to mind. I don't know what other panelists might think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, AR, I'm sort of on the sideline. Dale and I, we partition things up. But I have to say the work that Dale and Dimitri and others are doing on the AR side is super exciting. FME is well positioned because, of course, we read so many different types of data. And then it's not a question of how do I get access to the data. It's like, just put Dimitri and Dale, get their brains going on ways to represent it. And the ways you can just show things through AR is super exciting. The other thing that has me excited, touches on Dale's large data, is the fact we're seeing all these cloud databases adding spatial. So we see Google BigQuery added spatial, Snowflake added spatial, and that's super exciting because they didn't add spatial just because it is fun. Well, it is fun, but that's not what made them add spatial. They actually see that is going to drive their business forward. And of course, they work with us because they recognize that, hey, a database has much more value if you actually have data in it. And so that was a joke. I think I'm funny. But anyway, yeah, so rather than a database where you're fighting to get data in and out of it. And so those are really, really exciting things. Yeah.
Yeah, and I might just add there, I think there's, as GIS or spatial data gets used more widely, there's probably a case to be said that there's a GIS lite kind of growth going on out there where people are really, typical problems would just be point on area, who's in my market area, and those very lightweight, rapid spatial questions people ask around relatively simple data. But that is a growing area of a lot more people working in that kind of area, I would think.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mark. It really is. Yeah.
Okay, we got another hand raised, so I'm going to bring Adrian online. While I do that, I lost the question. It was a question about NDVI. Did anyone catch it?
Yes.
There's a lot coming in.
I caught that one.
Okay.
And it's worth, somebody asked, is there an NDVI calculator? And actually, one thing that you can do is just go onto the FME Workbench canvas and just type NDVI, and you can see that there will be an FME Hub custom transformer or package. I don't even know what that one is, that will be able to be downloaded and used. And so that's worth us pointing out, is that the FME Hub is filled with stuff. We know we can do better and help in terms of helping you find those things. But in this case, NDVI was the magic.
Nice success. Hey, Adrian.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Good.
Great.
Thanks for joining us. It's awesome to have you on.
So I wanted to ask about just touching on coordinate systems in FME AR. So what kind of the processes would be to pinning down a CAD design that maybe is set in state plane coordinates and pinning that down into an FME AR format.
That sounds like a good Dave Camp. Oh, go ahead, Dale.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if Dave has played. We need Dimitri. We have to get him out of bed and on the phone.
Maybe I'll send him. I can ping him.
Call a friend.
Yeah, can we call a friend? I do know that should work very well. I don't know exactly the plumbing that goes on underneath, but if you know what the coordinate system was of your input data, I know that whole flow works extremely well. And we could also maybe post some of the articles that we have on FME AR, like that there's a tutorial and so on for doing that. But the whole thing that we're doing with the augmented reality in the modern time is trying to make it spatially aware. We're calling it like geo AR. And so that means that the data we're putting out into our payload file, which incidentally is just an OBJ 3D file along with referencing information, is able to be then displayed in the right spot. Under the covers, I don't actually know what coordinate systems are being used, but I absolutely do know that it makes use of them. So yeah, it should be good. Now you might need to, if you're coming from CAD, you might need to do 3D buffering or something like that around your lines, so that, or extrude them so that there is something to actually look at, because lines on their own aren't too visible. But I would suggest taking a peek at some of the tutorials that Dimitri has put together, and you should be in business. I hope that you're happy enough to use iOS devices for the AR rendering. Right now, the Android is pretty far behind.
Yes, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd like to add that the coordinate system of the AR data is most likely a local coordinate system, because most of the 3D formats are in 32-bit coordinate systems, so they can't really handle things like state plane, most projected coordinate systems. So generally, we will create a local coordinate system for those, and then store the lat long of the origin along with it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm usually taking that state plane and taking those offsets and inner values and translating them either to a NAT83 or WGS coordinate system.
Yeah.
I think that it's all handled for you. My hunch is that you don't actually have to care. So in other words, if you have the input data and you do tell FME, hey, I know this was from a CAD file, but trust me, this was state plane, choose your state plane here, then it'll just do the right thing on the way through. That's my hunch as to how we've set that up. So I give that a spin first, and we'll see if we can ask a friend in terms of Dimitri, but it should just work.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to send you back to, or I think I might just have to stop your webcam sharing, but thank you. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I don't think I can actually send you back to an attendee, but either way, thanks so much for coming online to ask a question. That was a lot of fun. And I do love the idea of doing an Ask Me Anything too about AR or some of our mobile apps. We might have to do that in the future. Okay, well, we had so many questions come in that time as well. So
Perfect.
One of them was, can we use FME to integrate an SMS service into tracking vehicles?
Yes, absolutely. And there's a number of ways you can do it. One is both involving FME server. You could have an SMS. We have the ability for an SMS message to be sent to FME server, and then the FME server would process it and show it on a map, and it could stream it to different people or make it available on a website whenever you hit a button. So you can do it that way. The trick is just getting the SMS message to FME server. So as long as there's, a way to have a number that the SMS goes to and then it forwards it on, but there's even tutorials and some stuff on our knowledge base that shows that, but absolutely. Yeah.
Don, someone asked also if we've ever thought of consuming one of those spot devices, SPOT, which is like a GPS that has a very low data connection to tell where, I know my friend was a cyclist that rode from Denver to New Mexico on the mountains, and he had one of these. But it would boil down to if that thing has an API.
Yeah, that's right. And or it stores data in a website somewhere that has an API, right? Like I know Dimitri goes hiking and he downloads stuff on his device and then he downloads it. But there's a lot of these devices now where they push it to, you have an account and it's pushing the data to the website, and then the service from the company has an API, and then you can do it that way. So
even if it doesn't have an API. Even if it doesn't have an API, if it even makes a web page that you could scrape, like a lot of people don't realize FME is a pretty good website scraper. There's that HTML extractor. You got to know more about websites than I do, but if you do, under the covers, it uses the Python Beautiful Soup, and we tried to make a user interface for that in the HTML extractor. So that would be one way. You could set up an automation that wakes up every 15 minutes or hour and scrapes the website. Would be a way too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, there's not so many companies that deliver software in both Win, Linux, and Mac. I feel the Linux and Mac versions are under-communicated, but except for the different format support on some platforms, the feeling and stability is the same. Is it a chosen path to be able to run FME on any hardware?
Yes. No, we've tried. Yeah. I mean, we've been around so long, and we've had to, I was looking at that first website. It was proudly talking about how we were on Solaris on our website. And then over the years, we were on IBM AIX, or AIX, as we like to call it. And we never did. Yes. Yeah. Deck Alpha. Yeah. We were on Deck Alpha. So we've pretty much seen it all. And we're gearing up right now for ARM. I mean, it's going to be a journey, but there's some rumors that a week from now, Apple will be selling some ARM computers, ARM-based computers, and so that will happen. And along those journeys, of course, some formats will disappear. But yes, we do try very hard. We probably don't promote them. Don and I were both quite surprised the other day to see how many downloads of Linux desktop there were. Shocking. It was about 10% of the downloads, so we don't know if we believe it. So anyway, but that is our goal, and you'll see a lot of the safers do use Macs. I think Mac is it's below 10% of FME usage out there. By far, the lion's share is on the Windows platform.
And that's as Dale said, that's been our strategy right from the start. The core of the engine is C++ that can run anywhere. So moving to ARM, the challenge isn't our core technology. The challenge is all the third-party libraries that we leverage, all the open source libraries. But this has been the fact that that's been our strategy has been really key, because then things like Docker and Kubernetes come around, and the fact that our whole thing ran, on a Linux container meant that we could just embrace Docker, and so that now we're able to use that to embrace things like Fargate EKS on Amazon and all these Kubernetes services, and again, there's other technology out there where they've really focused to to support Win64 or Win32 or maybe they're only Linux, and that obviously there's pluses and minuses there, but we think the strategy that we have done sets us up well, because now when we move to ARM, it's really the level of effort is less than if we had dedicated our lives to all the special calls on one particular platform. So yeah.
Okay, we've had a couple questions about rasters. So, okay, I'm trying to find one to simplify. How do we compare rasters or blobs to images for differences?
I think right now the key tool would probably be, at least for rasters, the raster expression evaluator. You can feed in 2 rasters and then run an expression. So you could run a difference expression in there, or you could actually build up fairly complex expression to handle that information. We also have our color transformer that might be able to be of some use of doing statistical calculations. I think Mark can talk more to that.
Well, I'm not so sure about R and raster, but yeah, R and the R caller is a great tool. If there's a problem in FME that we're not solving, I've used that, and Mark Ireland as well, who's on the call, has used that a lot for some of the networking problems that we don't really solve, minimum spanning tree and other interesting network things. So R is a good go-to place if there's a problem in FME that we're not solving.
And that brings up another interesting point too, the R caller. SAFE works really hard to identify open source libraries, and then we basically form an integration platform to bring them all together, so you don't have to be a coder. But we have left some really powerful entry points into other domains. R caller is one of them. The other one that I've used a lot is the Python caller. There's just a gazillion great Python libraries, and sometimes you just want to use one. And one strategy for SAFE, we could say, no, we're going to replicate every single Python library and high performance C++ or R. But the question would really become, why would we do that when there's so much good work being done in R and Python? And so with those things, you can within FME just embrace the great work that people around the world are doing. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, does SAFE have any criteria to evaluate before deciding to support a format in FME? How do we decide that?
If it has XML in the name, Don will do it.
Absolutely, yeah. So XML. I'm going to answer that one, Mark. So that's a great. I'm glad. I was going to. If we didn't say XML in this webinar, I would have left very.
I was like, you got him going, Mark. No.
Yeah, there you go. So seriously, on the XML front, I mean, our XML technology is amazing. You almost now point it at an XML file with an XSD, and you're gonna get something of value with almost no work. But and so why do, if there's an XML, or we even do beer XML if anybody cares. And we know it's not on our website. It was just something we did for fun. But yeah. So and so why do I say that about XML? Well, the level of effort to add a format is always something we have to look at when we're adding a new format, right? Like we've been asked for some formats, and then we try to figure out what's the who's this going to help in the community? What value does it have to the community versus the level of effort? And XML, we've been working on it probably since I was 3. Basically since the beginning of time, and now it's just it's so easy now to add formats than it has ever been before. So the level of effort for the XML ones is pretty, and JSON is pretty low. But yeah
it is.
And on that front, I think one of our problems is promoting that, because our GML, particularly reading and writing, is very strong, and so we support many flavors of schemas out of the box, but we don't really promote those and have them on a website somewhere. So people don't know that we actually support those flavors, even though our native GML would read or write it.
Right. And just in general, this question about formats is a tough one, because there are so many out there, and some of them are very niche and very hard. And so with time, we can't make the economics work for that, because we've tried over the years to sell formats. So if we know that there's 10 people that are going to care about this format, all right, maybe we'll try to do it and make them pay 10 grand each or something like that to allow it to be sustainable. Those have always flopped. So the kind of business model for pay per use on an individual format has never gone anywhere. The long-term idea would be, all right, maybe we can continue to make it easier and easier for third parties to add them. So if it's absolutely crucial to your company that we supported some seismic format, if we make that simple enough that your own dev team could add it, then that would be a solution. And that has happened out there, but we know we've got work to do in terms of making that easier. There are APIs to add stuff to FME, and many have done it. It's probably not as easy as it should be.
We had a couple of questions about formats we can answer here too, maybe. What is the most challenging data format that will appear in FME's future?
Yeah, I mean, I would say some of the, I'm going to just jump on this one. Maybe the BIM formats. And so we're looking at, because some of them have geometry types that we're going to add to FME, and then there's with that comes some 3D geometric processing that's very hard. So it's a multi-team thing at SAFE to really do a good job of some of these formats like IFC and Rhino. I know Dale's been, was on a call with the folks from Rhino, and then we have 12D, which is one from Australia, New Zealand, well, the rest of the world outside North America, and Autodesk has formats. And so, but some of the geometry types and the processing is really the hard part with some of those. So that's some of my thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay, then we got the reverse question. What is the simplest spatial data format out of the formats we support?
Well, the old ArcInfo generator is pretty hard to beat. It's basically, here's the number of points and here's a bunch of X and Y's. I don't know, does anybody have one easier than that? I know Don would go for an XML based one, but
yeah, I was going to say like GeoJSON. It's a well-defined format, and it seems everybody's throwing data into it, and it just works. But how about the text file?
Actually, I would say CSV is a lat long column.
Right.
There you go.
Because now, if we identify that you've got a name that looks like latitude, longitude, or lat long or something, we will read that, make it into a geometry, and set the coordinate system. So it can't get much easier than that.
We just did a thing where we looked at a whole bunch of different languages to find out how they say latitude and longitude, and made sure FME will automatically pick that up. And I was kind of embarrassed, an Alberta boy, that Canadians should know some French, but I was about to write our French partner and say, how do you say latitude and longitude in French? And then I did a Google query and found out it is latitude and longitude. So I quickly deleted that email.
That's a great story. Yeah.
Okay, I have maybe an elephant in the room kind of question, but it's a little bit fun. Hypothetically, could FME be used to register votes in real time and integrate the results? Could it do it fully encrypted?
Well, that's an elephant in the room. I do know there is one state that does collate all its votes. I won't talk about the state, but there is a state that uses FME in the back to bring all the votes together and do some sort of work with the election. I'm not going to say that FME is counting the votes. I wouldn't want to say that, and I don't think anybody would want anyone would want their software counting votes in any election that a democracy depends on. But there's a lot to be said for people doing it and being diligent.
But if it could be done, if you were doing maybe some,
it could be done.
Like
It sometimes could be done and should be done, are not the same.
But actually, we quite a number of years ago, about 5 years ago, we did a project with Esri where we put up onto GeoNet some example templates of election, electoral district counting, and so I can't remember the details of that now, but we did do that.
That was to do with the Community Maps program. It was kind of an offshoot of that. We did a lot of work with Esri for building templates so that municipalities could participate in that. And a lot of times those things are about having a common data model that allows collaboration, and then you have to find a way to go from whatever a local site has to that common data model. And that's what Mark's group did a lot of work on. And you're right, there was an election side of that too.
Okay, so what kind of support, or is FME going to support the new Azure Utility Network? Or what kind of support do we have?
I would say pretty good support, and probably going to evolve over time as that utility network gets more embraced by the Esri customers. We've been working closely with Esri to build migration workspaces. So we've got on our websites migration workspaces to move from ArcGIS to utility network for water, gas, and electric. So those are templates people can use. And then we've been expanding our feature services read and writers to support some of the nuances that are used in Utility Network, like the branch versioning that Esri introduced around utility networks. I think the still big unknown that we haven't really been working with yet, and probably still need to understand a bit more about, is how to update topology for the utility networks. But the other great thing is that all that is driven by the Esri REST API, and we have great support for working with REST APIs. And so if FME currently doesn't do it out of the box with our feature service read and writer, we would want to know about it so that we could fix those. But in the interim, you could use the HTTP caller to fire off requests to that REST API and get the results or insert the data that you need. And we have customers that we know are doing that already.
Awesome. Okay. I kind of lost this question, but it was one about streaming and tying up an engine. Did anyone catch it? Don, did you see that one?
Yeah, I'll answer that one. That's a great question. So the question was, will the new stream support in FME 2021 remove the need to tie up an engine? And and the answer is the situation's improved, but the short answer is no. You're still going to have to tie up an engine. But what we've introduced is dynamic engines, and so now the dynamic engines, you only pay for the CPU that's used. For people who didn't like the old one, it was if they had a stream that might have, 100 messages a second, or maybe it was really bursty, but then most of the day it was doing nothing. And so then you'd be tying up a standard engine to handle that. And that's quite an expensive solution. With dynamic engines now, you can you pay by the CPU hour, and you can dedicate an engine to that. And if the stream's bursty or the stream just has few messages a minute, you're only paying for the CPU time. So so that's the solution we've got to. The challenge of not tying up an engine is, and some folks have done this, where they send messages directly to the FME core through an HTTP endpoint and then fire up a workspace to process it. There's a number of challenges there. One is the number of messages that the core can handle is not measured in tens of thousands of requests per second. And the second problem is that each message is handled independently. So there's no way you can, within your workspace, you can easily compare, one message from another message, combine things for messages and things like that. So the preferred approach is dynamic engines. It was new with FME 2020. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Don. Okay, this one made me laugh a little bit. What's the spec on the biggest FME server on the planet, and how many engines does it have?
Do you know, like, I know that there's at least one customer with more than 100 engines.
Yeah.
Fair to say?
Yeah, and then we have a client that is that's using dynamic engines like crazy in the cloud, launching Spot instances, and they because it's dynamic engines, the cost to spin up 1,000 engines, do some work and shut down, is the same as running one engine for 1,000 times as long. And so they're really a forward-looking company who has really strict time requirements, and so dynamic engines was perfect for them. And they were yeah.
As far as we know, we have no installs on Mars yet.
That's right. And the architecture of FME server is such that you can have multiple cores, and each core can handle, let's say 300 engines. I'm making that number up, but it's measured in the hundreds. And if you need more engines, you can now have a second core, and the second core gives you two things. It gives you the ability, now you have fault tolerance, but it also means you can, if you have two cores, you can have twice as many engines that are being fed. So we built, FME server in that approach. So if you do hit a limit on that one core can handle is giving out jobs, then you can add another core. The number, it's not related to the number of engines, it's related to the number of jobs per second that a core can hand out. So if you got big jobs, you could have one core with thousands of engines. If you have really tiny jobs, then you're gonna need more cores. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, 15 minutes left, so we'll get to some more. I want to mention again for anyone joining late, we might not be able to get to all questions on the air, but we do have Mark and Dan working hard behind the scenes to help answer questions in chat. And if we don't get to you, we will follow up with you afterwards. And there is still a chance if you want to raise your hand to come on the air, we can make that happen too. Okay, next question. How would you handle reprojecting a CAD file? I hear crickets.
No, well, it depends. A lot of CAD files do not have a coordinate system defined within the CAD file itself. Some of the newer AutoCAD files do, but most do not. So when you're working with the CAD data, normally you would set the coordinate system on either the input parameters, or you could define that coordinate system, the input coordinate system, explicitly in the reprojector transformer you're using. Another method of doing it is, especially if you have like a lot of CAD files and they're all in the same folder and all in the same coordinate system, is you can create a sidecar PRJ file, which is like very similar, basically the same as the PRJ file in a shape file. And if you name it esri_cad.prj, it will essentially act as the coordinate system source for all the AutoCAD files in that folder, and it will override any of the CAD files that have the coordinate system internally. So it's best only to do this if you have them all in the same coordinate system.
Awesome, thanks, Dave.
So I'm going to ask Dave a question here. So Dave, if I have a CAD file and it has the dreaded 00 in one corner of the project, how do I actually get that in the right place on the ground?
It depends what's at that 00. And this is also the fun part with CAD files is normally when we read CAD files, especially if you go into GIS, you'll want to read the blocks as points rather than expanding them into their components, because you're going to be replacing them with symbols in GIS. But there's always some joker who puts the maps around in your file as a block, and usually with the origin at 00. So yeah, that can make like interesting, and you may have to do some filtering on your CAD file to just get rid of the features that don't make any sense in that coordinate system.
Dave,
so when you're working with indoor data, go ahead, Dale.
I just wanted to point out that yesterday on the webinar, Dave showed how to add a real-world coordinate system to Revit. Was it Revit data, I think, ultimately?
Yeah.
And that technique that Dave showed, so if anybody wants to watch, use Google Earth, figured out corners of the building, and then did a defined transformation to shift it into the right spot. You can see Dave go through in quite a bit of detail on the archive from yesterday's webinar.
Cool, I'll check that out.
Yeah, that's a common problem with indoor mapping. People have a building and they want to put it in indoor mapping, and indoor mapping isn't geographic coordinates. So you have to know where the building is and move it using the affine, what's it called? The affine fit, Dale? What's it called? The affine
warper.
Affine warper, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that works if you're working with an existing, like a building that's already built.
Right.
It's a little trickier when it's not built yet. Then you best go back and talk to the surveyor if you can.
Cool. We got an extra shout out too about the BIM webinar part 1 and 2. Good work. People enjoyed it. Okay. Is FME capable of converting a feature layer from ArcGIS Online to ArcGIS Portal?
I hope yes, but does Mark know? Oh, he's muted.
Oh wait, Mark, you're muted.
Should be. There's a feature service flavor for ArcGIS Online, and then another one for the portal. If the feature layer was a bit more complicated, you might have to also use the what is it called, ArcGIS Online connector or something like that it's called, which allows you to pull down attachments and those kind of things related to a feature layer. So yeah, I think that should be doable.
I think this is a scenario that we're hearing more people talk about, is trying to mirror between ArcGIS Online and a portal. And so because this is coming up more, I've had other questions, in the product management side of FME, we may want to write some articles about that scenario, because I think FME can do a good job.
Cool. Okay. What new ways are there to use and leverage spatial data that we are excited about seeing?
Sure. I mean, it goes back to what Dale said earlier. I think the whole AR approach is very exciting, and Dimitri and Dale have come up with a really great tagline. Don't visualize your data, experience it, or something to that effect. And it's and you see the value that adds to utility workers or city workers who are out in the field with their AR. Now they don't have to look on their device. They can literally look through their device and see superimposed on top of reality, so augmented reality. That's really an exciting thing to see. Yeah.
And I would also think machine learning and AI, like the rollout of 5G towers, antenna towers, the very high density of those towers, they're very sensitive to what's around them and the reflectance. So using machine learning and AI to try and figure out what the best place to place a tower or other kind of data, I think would be super interesting.
Cool. Okay. Can someone explain the attribute definition choices when using CSV files?
So the question there is, where do those data types that are on the pull down come from? And those ones are ones that Dawn and I made up. For every format, we get a chance to determine the vocabulary of that format as far as data types go. And so CSV basically out of the box has no data types. Everything is just a string. And so what we try to do with that, though, is give a vocabulary that if you know what they are, then stuff downstream could be better inside of FME. And so we did our best to try to come up with different choices there. And they're trying to be generic ones that aren't very Oracle-like or and so on. But we probably have a miss in terms of CSV that we don't allow a date time. I think this is on Mark Stoakes' hot list, that we should get date time as a pull down. Being able to say, I think right now you can say char, but we probably don't say a maximum length, and that might be what Tim is asking this, and it's a good question. But we do know that CSV is like in the top formats, I think in the top 4 anyway of FME. So giving more choices and being better about the data types there, I think is a good idea. But that's where it comes from. If you really want to know, it's inside of the meta file. There's this amazing invention that Dawn and I came up with called the meta file that defines the way that formats work and talk to the FME generic typing system. And that's where we put these words.
Cool. Okay, any plans to support Azure geodatabase compression without having Azure software installed?
So I think that's probably around the file geodatabase open API might now support compression, I guess. I don't know whether we've looked at that actually.
I hadn't heard
if the API supports it.
I hadn't heard that there was a compressed option for a geodatabase. So this is something that we'll have to get our team to look at. Basically, unless it's in the file geodatabase open API, we aren't going to be able to do anything though, because that's a fairly complex thing. The open source folks have done some file geodatabase stuff. We've not adopted that yet because we're well enough served with the Esri options. And we don't want to add yet another variant into the mix. And just so that everybody can be excited about this, there's rumors of a SQLite based file geodatabase coming over the hill just to add some more spice into life. So.
Oh, wow.
Okay, where do you see indoor mapping being used the most? And what systems are the easiest and what formats are the most difficult?
It sounds like a Dave Campanas question since he spends his life in indoor mapping.
Well, it's becoming, I mean, originally it was just for like routing in major venues like airports and shopping malls, but it's become more and more useful, especially if you're getting into the facilities management arm of things. It's nice to have an interactive map to sort of lay out or to arrange your people and stuff rather than just working from a tabular set. Also, I think one of the demos I did was you're taking sort of indoor data and you're using it for your maintenance guys. So you can lay out the information from BIM on the indoors. And so your maintenance guys, when they go to work on a certain area, should know actually everything graphical about that area, and it should speed things up quite a bit.
Cool. Okay, we do have someone's hand raised, Grant, so I'm going to try and bring Grant on the line. While I do that, I don't know if anyone has scanned all the questions coming in and has a favorite one they want to answer. Yeah, here. Okay, Grant, I'm going to send you.
Yeah, there's one about data volumes. I'll throw this one at Dale. So, so the question is, with data volumes growing, what is SAFE's strategy to deal with growing data volumes?
We stay up all day and night worrying about this, and basically we've been on a long journey to allow FME not to be comfortable with just tens or hundreds of thousands of things, but instead millions and tens of millions. And that involves a new subsystem in FME that works together with the old one. So if we pull it off, nobody needs to know or care that which one we're using underneath. But we have, like the other day, as just a test, I made a workspace that generated 1 million over here and 1 million over here with 2 creators, put them into a feature joiner just to see 1 million to 1 million join. What can we do? 6 seconds. And I talked to Don afterwards and I said, if I'd have told you 3 or 4 years ago that I'm going to make a workspace that'll join 2 million features and it'll be done in 6 seconds, I don't think you'd believe me. So we know that this is a big issue. We're sweeping through our transformers, starting with the top 20 and going from there. And actually FME 2021 is going to have some big improvements in this area. But yes, so that's a huge effort on our part, and it's basically keep the flexibility that we've always had in FME and layer onto that the ability not to pay any tax, any price for high data volumes. Thanks, Don.
Yeah. No, that's it. And it's funny now when you run FME, because every once in a while we've always thought FME was fast, but now sometimes you'll run FME and you go, oh, sick. This new technology that Dale and his team has built is not in this part of FME, and now it seems slow because we get so performance. One of those things you get used to it so quickly, and I'd say the other thing when we're working with all these big data lakes is we really work so that you can push as much of the work as you can to the database. We don't want to be creating huge data lakes or massive data stores into FME just to do some grinding. We talk about pushing all the stuff to the database. Getting it back, and then FME works on the residuals to just fine tune and give you that final answer that you're able to do. So yeah.
Okay, Grant, I'm not sure. I don't think you get your webcam to be shared, but if your audio's there, you can answer questions.
Yeah. Yes. Can you hear me?
We can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hi. I have a question of do you have the like ArcGIS runtime engine? So we can, as a developer, we can use like a licensed engine to develop, to integrate our application.
We do have a number of folks who have done that, and what they do is there's an FME Objects API where you can run a workspace. So the beauty of that is you can still use the power of Workbench to build really nice workflows, and then you can test it and get it running. And then there's an entry point, I think it's called Run Workspace or something on this. And then it basically engages the engine, runs the workspace, and pushes the data to where you need it. In the past, folks, we have a lower level API called FME Object, but that just leads you down a path of frustration because you don't have access to the power of Workbench. And really, Workbench is an amazingly powerful piece of software that enables you to configure the engines in wonderful ways very, very quickly. And that's really one of our key things we bring without coding. And so now we have this new interface where you can leverage all the power of Workbench, and then you would ship the Workbench file along with the engine. And so, yeah.
Okay, so we if we use our applications, we can use the kind of interface of FME workframe to get the data input and get data out. Sorry, I'm not quite familiar with FME. Yeah,
that's the thing. Like the vendor would use Workbench to build, like let's say you would use Workbench to build the flow, and then to all your customers, you would simply ship that that workbench file with it, and then they would use the FME that they have. That's the common approach organizations use. Yeah.
Without knowing the details exactly of what you're up to, I do think we have some of our partners that have done very similar things. That if it's about ArcGIS Engine or those subsets, FME does work with that as well. If it's ArcGIS Runtime, that's a little different thing that I'm not as familiar with. I don't know what you get with the Runtime, but anyway, that might be something you could follow up with us about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to mute. Awesome. Okay, I think we are at time. I don't know, did any of you guys see questions that you want to address that I didn't get to?
I think we could go obviously all day, but I want to ask Mark, because there's one that is up his alley. Someone has a road network that they want to use FME to figure out if there's disconnected parts of a road network. And I think that you've done stuff like this, Mark. Isn't there some sort of networking transformers that tell you what's connected and what isn't?
It's my favorite transformer. I've got it written down here. It's the network topology calculator. Yeah, it does just that. There's a few tricks to using it, but yep, that will tell you where you've got spur roads that aren't connected to your road network or any network. So yep, that's the guy. They can contact me directly if they want to talk about it a bit more. Mark at safe.com.
You can't get there from here. That's what that answers.
That's right.
Well, I think then, yeah, Mark and Dan behind the scenes were working really hard. I think they answered a lot of questions. But yeah, no, this was a lot of fun. We do have another AMA in the works for December about data integration as a whole. So if we didn't get to your question, or you have other questions that you want to address, then we can definitely send out that email. Yeah, it is hard to pull away from the questions. I'm still seeing some come in. But no, that was a lot of fun.
So thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us. The questions are, to us are of more value than simply during the AMA. It gives us a window into some of the challenges that you are all having and trying to address. And so that's valuable input as we continue to push FME into, expand its reach. So, and we really appreciate your time too. We have fun with this. We love talking about this. As Dale said, we could talk about this all day. But we won't.
I don't know. We got a comment about a 24-hour AMA, so.
Wow. Yeah. That's funny.
Big commitment.
Somebody asked what you're drinking, so I don't know. It says, "What is Don drinking?" That's worth asking.
I'm drinking coffee. Yeah. Yeah, because I don't have enough energy, so I drink coffee. Yeah. And it's a funny mug. It's a funny mug. My daughter has a weird sense of humor. I don't know where she got it from. But anyway, it says with a body like this, who needs hair, right? So she has jumped on the whole hair joke bandwagon. And so I have lots of these things about no hair. So anyway, it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah. Well, I think with that is the perfect question to wrap with. But thank you guys so much. Thanks to everyone who came online to ask a question too. We always appreciate it. And like we said, if we didn't get to your question on the air or behind the scenes, we'll follow up with you afterwards. And we do appreciate you taking the time to ask us a question.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I'll leave it running for like 5-ish more minutes if anyone has something they want to chat in, but we'll go away.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.